Hello and welcome to Charlotte, North Carolina. He's Chris Halicke of DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm Dejan Kovacevic. Steelers 24, Panthers 16. And Chris, I don't know where else we could possibly start if it isn't right in the trenches, because this is where games had been getting lost.
Yes, absolutely. Final two quarters of the Falcons game. They won, but it was not pretty at the end, and then obviously they got ran all over by Baltimore.
Yep.
And then the Panthers are coming in. They're averaging almost 160 yards a game without Christian McCaffrey somehow.
On the ground.
And 21 yards rushing for Carolina. It was that's one of the biggest reasons why they won today.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that maybe the Panthers got away from the run a little early.
Yeah, kind of gave up on it.
But then when you were them and you saw that they had their second drive, all of a sudden, phew, there goes Sam Darnold looking like whatever Sam Darnold was supposed to be. This was impressive in that facet. But really, I thought on both trenches, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the run game for the Steelers wasn't one of those like, wow, they ran all over them, but at the same time they ran efficiently and made third downs much more manageable. And Najee, again, it wasn't the most efficient game. I don't think he even averaged 4 yards a carry, but it seemed like he did more.
Doesn't matter, because Najee's average is never going to end up super high, because he's not going to break the 70-yarders that skew your average.
Yeah.
He didn't do it in college. He's not going to do it in the NFL.
Yeah.
But when you see him busting, like the touchdown, it was right here in this end zone.
Yeah.
Who was the poor SOB that was waiting for him?
I don't remember the name, but I mean, he's going to be on the back of a milk carton.
Because Najee was prepared to take this individual's head and shove it into this turf.
Richie Grant knows about that.
And right. And the reason that Najee was able to do that more than once in the game is that the line, particularly inside the tackles, which had been unthinkable for this offense until late.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, I think the first, a couple of runs, they tried to go inside and it wasn't really working, and then they ran one to the outside, and he kind of broke it for 8 or 9 yards, and then they ran another one to the outside, and he broke it for another nice gain. It's like, okay, now Carolina's got to widen a little bit, and now Najee can start running up the middle and do what he does up the middle, and that's caused a lot of people to not feel very good the next day.
It's so funny that you mentioned exactly those plays, though, because that was the ones that the offensive line guys were talking about.
Yeah.
You went through the left side, and here you're Dan Moore, and I'm Kevin Dotson, okay? And each of us gets our guy, and there's a nice hole there. So much so that Najee doesn't have to get skinny or anything to get through it. He just goes flying through it. Kevin Dotson said to me, he was just a blur.
Yeah.
And then Moore hears us, and Moore looks over to Dotson and goes, "Did you even see him?" So I mentioned this one to Najee as well, and he said that's what I was getting from these guys today.
Yeah.
It allowed him to run downhill.
Yeah, which is what, I mean, whenever people were wanting to criticize Najee earlier this season, the thing was he's not running downhill, he's doing too many cuts and everything like that, but when they're blocking like that and he's able to either run downhill, whether it's to the outside or to the inside, he's able to use that size and that physicality that he has to his advantage, and that's what makes him such a dangerous runner when he's running like that.
Yeah. Yes. The other side of the football I thought was just as effective, certainly when it came to stopping the run.
Absolutely.
They obviously didn't play great in pass defense, as a couple of them acknowledged to me kind of quietly.
It was not great.
It's a little bit different like this. I would look at this team and say that defensively, they got their pride back.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you were in the locker room after the Ravens game. They took that beating that they had on the ground personally.
Personally, as in individually.
Yeah,
I'm not putting words in your mouth. We've talked about this. They were sitting there, T.J. Watt individually at his stall going, "What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
What did I do wrong out there?"
Yeah. They made a concerted effort this week in practice to up the physicality. They didn't need to reinvent the wheel when it came to their defensive schemes. They just was like, you know what? We just have to be the more physical team this week. They had a padded practice for the first time this week in a few weeks. They made a concerted effort to be more physical, and sometimes in this game, we've talked about, we can overcomplicate it so much, but sometimes it's just, I'm going to beat you. And that's just all it takes.
The old James Harrison beat the man across from you.
Yeah.
That was James Harrison's detailed strategy going into every game.
Absolutely.
When we come back, Deontay Johnson. Welcome back. We've been rough on Deontay. Everybody has.
Yeah.
And not without cause. He brings it on himself. And he dropped an onside kick, by the way, if you guys didn't realize that was him. That did that too on the hands team and got up and made a scene that could have resulted in another Marcus Allen style flag, whatever. But look at me getting all negative.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. 10 targets, 10 catches, 98
yards, and
still no touchdowns.
I actually asked him about that after.
No, you didn't.
I did. I just wanted to ask.
I don't know him. I don't want anything to do with this.
I just wanted to ask him.
How did you put that?
I was just like, you know what, you didn't get into the end zone, but it was still a big game for you. Like, what did it mean? And he's like, what
do you mean I didn't get into the end zone?
It's like, well, he said the thing that you would expect a guy like Deontay to say, somebody who's tried to become a leader in that receiver room. It's not about me. It's about this team. It's about us winning. And for him, we talked about the running game and how they, what they were able to do, what the offensive line was able to do. That made third downs more manageable. 12 of 16 on third downs today. And Deontay was a big part of that because
he was a big third down factor, especially when you consider, and I'm not 100% sure that this is going to be a criticism what's about to come out of my mouth here, but Pat Freiermuth wasn't targeted at all here today. No. And now it's easy, it's low-hanging fruit to say, Matt Canada's an idiot and everything else, but there are two other factors into this because I'm usually real easy to get on that train. One was that Freiermuth is hobbled by a foot injury.
Yeah, he is.
He's been slowed in practice,
right?
Yeah.
He was. I don't remember. I think he only was limited one day.
Yeah.
I don't think he practiced 2 other days.
But he's not.
Yeah, he's
okay?
not 100%.
So it's one thing to ask him to stand in there and block, and he had the majority of snaps. But it's another thing to ask him to go getting dynamic out on the routes. Yeah. The other thing was, it couldn't have been clearer that Mike Tomlin, Matt Canada, and all concerned did not want Mitch Trubisky throwing over the middle of the field.
No, and ironically, though, whenever he did, he found Deontay Johnson, which whenever earlier in the season when Mitch Trubisky wasn't throwing the ball over the middle of the field, it was Deontay. Everything with Deontay is going to the sideline. It's going to the sideline. And a couple of times, the 3rd and 14 where he had the 19-yard gain, that was the one that really stood out to me because Deontay ran a really deep dig there.
That's what it was, though. It was a dig because he gets down there, and this is what's important here. Deontay gets down there, but then he curls back to the quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's the only safe pass that you're going to see in the Canada playbook across the middle.
Yeah.
And again, to Mitch's credit, he hit it. And to Deontay's credit, he had both the speed and the sharpness to make that cut and make himself available for a safe pass.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that we saw from Deontay today, and I saw a little bit of it in Atlanta outside, everybody wants to hate on him for the 2 drops in Atlanta. He's starting to simplify it a little bit more after the catch. You still have the couple of times.
He still did it.
No, he still did it. But earlier in the year, he was trying to make every single catch a home run. And he did it a little bit in Atlanta where it's just put my head down and just move forward. And he did it a couple times.
But the 19-yarder you just praised was one of those, too.
It was.
And you heard what I said in the press box when he did it. I said, don't encourage him. Not you, meaning Deontay.
Right.
Let's not overstate any of this, and I hope you guys don't hear us and go, oh, listen to them getting all. But what's their record? 6-8.
6-8.
Okay. Yeah. Mathematically, a meteor would have to strike this bland skyline back here. Nobody would miss it. That's actually the skyline, that lunch pail looking thing over my shoulder. But you're not going to see this team doing anything. But what they do need to do, Chris, is continue to get better.
Yeah, they do. Because at this point, yes, the Steelers aren't making the playoffs. The best they can do is 9-8 and continue the Tomlin non-losing season streak, which has so many people.
He said that, not me. I had nothing to do with that.
I don't mind bringing it, but this team does need to continue to get better.
Yeah.
This offensive line, Mason Cole is going to be here next year. James Daniels is going to be here next year.
They might all be here next year.
That's what I'm saying. So this offensive line needs to continue to gel, continue to run. Najee Harris is only in his 2nd year. He's got to continue to get better.
Yeah,
Deontay Johnson, as much as we like to think of him as some sort of veteran receiver, he's only in his 4th year. He's got to continue to get better.
Yeah, there's a lot of phases, but particularly in the trenches where I get worried about them for the future and think about how much they have to invest in terms of capital, meaning draft capital, free agency capital, the more of these guys who solidify themselves, like the Dan Moores, like the Kevin Dotsons, if they do, I'm not saying today did, then the offseason becomes that much easier. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Dejan Kovacevic from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Thanks for watching.